All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
Welcome back to He's on Fire podcast. This is number 2 for the night for me. Please go watch the other one that I had just a little bit ago with superfan Jonathan Poppy, but 1996 legend himself, Kyle Murphy. We have a lot to get going to talk about, but we are going to be joined tonight by our good friend Blake Murphy from Revenge of the Birds podcast.
And we're going to talk about the Suns. They've won 8 in a row. They're cruising. I got a DeAndre Ayton. I have DeAndre Hopkins too, but I got a DeAndre Ayton take. I got a Booker take, which is going to surprise some people. And, the team is winning, man. They're cruising right now. Go ahead, Jay.
And despite the Cardinals getting smacked in the mouth today, it's not a big deal, in my opinion, considering how the NFC is looking right now and everybody's sort of losing. That's in the top right now. But we're going to get all into that with Blake coming up on this episode of the He's on Fire pod.
Weird day and weekend in Arizona sports. But no matter what you do, please follow us. Please share this out. Please interact in the conversation. He's on Fire podcast. Gonna get into everything. Let's go.
Urbandici sets. Loads up. And it is caught. Dylan Strong. Blitz coming. Matthews. Palmer extending the play. Crosses the field. Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is insane to the 4-yard line.
Crowder looking, throws it alley. Oh! He puts it down. He puts it down. They're getting a little wobbly. Philadelphia just Ayuk. A foot race. They won't get him. Center field. The Diamondbacks are world champions.
I will still take 8-2. I will still take 8-2. And I know that there are a lot of people pissed on the timeline today, as well they should be, because overall it didn't even look like the damn team wanted to be there. But I will take 8-2. So let's get right into the Arizona Cardinals, and we have Blake Murphy joining us from Revenge of the Birds. You can catch him writing articles. He's on podcasts left and right. Blake Murphy, how are you, my friend?
Hey, doing good. Happy to be on, guys. It's unfortunate to talk about just the second Cardinals loss this season and probably the first egg that they laid. When you consider that in the Packers game, really that game was down to the wire, and even in the Vikings when that should have probably been a loss, if not for Vikings kickers, something that doesn't surprise Vikings fan bases, unfortunately, at all anywhere. This is kind of one of the games that I think a lot of people expected that Arizona could have had a week ago against the Niners. Instead, you end up with a much more revenge game narrative for the likes of players like Zane Gonzalez, Hassan Reddick, and Matt Rule still coaching in circles around Cliff Kingsbury. Cam Newton returning, so many things to be able to talk about. Unfortunately, not as many positives for the Cardinals today. There's still a few, but not as many positives outside of looking forward to the upcoming weeks.
Unfortunately, we have to do post-game podcasts, and we aren't looking forward. So we get to talk about the egg that they did drop today. Now, we all know that there was all these reports coming out earlier in the week that they weren't even practicing one day. They called off practice, and it's like, no, they just did a walkthrough because they have so many injuries. So, Blake, do you attribute this loss to lack of star power with D-Hop, K1, JJ Watt being out, all these guys, or do you attribute it to they just came out and laid an egg? Because Cliff Kingsbury came out afterwards and was surprised at the effort or lack thereof.
Yeah, I feel like every coach would like kind of come out after a big loss like this, say they're surprised at like the lack of or the effort. I think really what it comes down to is that the NFL in a lot of ways is a star league, and good coaching, guys being, able to make plays either on offense or defenses around a backup quarterback, that can definitely win you a game. When you're talking about being able to win multiple games over the span of a season without a star quarterback, then you really have to be a team that's going to be able to be effective in running the football, keeping things nice and tidy for your quarterback up front, and not turning the ball over on offense. And really, this game, I think, comes down to the fact that the Cardinals turned the ball over effectively 3 times in the opening first quarter and really weren't able to recover from that. I think the biggest difference for Cardinals fans, it's been Arizona who's been on that side of the ball being up 17-0, not usually their opponents doing it, much less a team like the Carolina Panthers, who's starting backup to a backup quarterback, essentially now that Cam Newton is on the Panthers.
Absolutely. And I kind of attributed this loss to not maybe everything that I just listed off, but it just kind of felt like they didn't want to be there. Maybe they were overconfident. Maybe they had it in the bag. I don't know what it was, but we did to the Panthers what the Niners did to us last week, where they just gift wrapped a couple of the plays for us, and we were able to get up big and just kind of cruise from there. Unfortunately, we didn't show a lot of fight. We saw Chris Streveler had to come on towards the end of the game due to an injury. Hopefully Colt McCoy is going to be okay. I haven't personally seen anything else with that, but what surprised me the most out of everything was the lack of run play today. It was completely non-existent. James Conner was frustrated all day. Give me your thoughts on offensive line play, but also the running back group today, or lack thereof.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think in a lot of different ways when you're talking about like, run pass ratio, the Niners, like you said last week, and this is kind of the way the NFL always goes. It's always a question of, did we run the ball too little? Did we throw it too much? Usually, as we've seen in the league, you end up being able to have star quarterbacks who are able to run the ball to win and kind of close out games, especially when you've got the balance that keeps the ball in your hands, keeps it the clock. It's not as risky of a play, but you're not going to be making usually huge plays or huge gains as well. And what we seen with the Cardinals last year was, they had a star in Kyler Murray's legs, and that could take them to about halfway through the season before the offense kind of broke down. And I think in this game, when it started early, you saw those turnovers had such a huge effect. I think you could maybe question a bit of Cliff coming out calling 3 straight pass plays for Colt McCoy right out of the gate. Arizona kind of comes out in their first drive and ends up, you got a 1-yard pass, you open up with, a 4-yard pass, and then on 3rd and 5, you're like, okay, you have Colt McCoy get sacked with Hassan Reddick just using a nice inside move, gets past the tackle. He gets sacked, and it's strip sack. The ball comes out, and whatever case of the passing offense, it just seemed like it didn't really function that well. We've seen Arizona get off to a slow start in their passing game before. But really, in this case, you need to have, with a backup quarterback in, have the ability to go and saying, we got to run the ball 35 or so times. And as soon as you get down with those type of turnovers, suddenly you can't just run the ball. You have to be able to start throwing to catch up, to get into the game. There's only so many plays and so much time. And that's really what we've seen. The Cardinals have been able to do to teams all season long, is they've been able to force turnovers, be able to kind of get some of those plays, make them pay. And then, like we see in the Cleveland game, like we saw in the Niners game, put them away in the second half by running it out with James Conner. Maybe you could say they could have done a bit more to run the ball or establish it in the first half, but when you look back at the tape, I didn't see there after that first sack, there wasn't like that was that many protection issues. Colt McCoy wasn't sacked much. There was times he seemed like he had a lot of time in the pocket, at least. There was a couple of honestly great plays that the Panthers made, one which you mentioned got him hurt. It felt like it was more of just one of those cases of where, when you've got a backup quarterback and when you get down, if you're going to overcome adversity, you can overcome adversity with Kyler Murray. You can overcome adversity with DeAndre Hopkins. I think that the only way you can overcome adversity in this game was you would have had to have forced multiple turnovers of the Panthers. And we saw Arizona get 1 interception, but really it came down to you turned the ball over twice, technically 3 times in your own territory to start the game. They were just always playing from behind it. It was pretty much a no-go after that once Christian McCaffrey was able to start running and get some open daylight in front of him.
If Jordan Hicks makes that interception and returns it, that changes the entire game.
Absolutely.
And for whatever the view that I saw, I didn't get the whole multiple. I only saw the replay one time. It looked like he caught it, and it looked like he wasn't touched. But I guess
No,
it was.
It definitely hit the ground, unfortunately.
Okay. But that would have changed the entire game.
Yeah, and I saw that in like live. I was like, that ball hit the ground, and it's like, we're not looking at the big screen, we're not looking there. It was a weird, wonky, bad pass. It looked like it got bad. And again, he trapped it against his body. But that's one of the things that can be sometimes where when we talk about there is an element of luck that comes into some of these turnovers. Like you're going to have some that are going to be obvious, such as a guy decides to. Like Colt McCoy today, throws backwards again, back across his body, over the middle. One of the most dangerous passes a quarterback can make. You got to have really good arm strength to be doing that. He overthrows Antoine Wesley, and wouldn't you know, there's a guy just waiting there. There's other kind of things of bad luck where a ball may just, strip sack bounce, and a Cardinals running back happens to be the first one who covers it, or Panthers player kicks it out of the end zone. There is a little bit of luck that goes into some of these turnovers. What isn't luck, unfortunately, is going to be the simplest part of the NFL, which is blocking, tackling, making sure that you're keeping your assignments. And in that regard, Arizona's linebackers didn't do their best job, I think, today. Maybe you could look a little at Marco Wilson, but a lot of it was simply the Panthers were able to line up and run the ball, and Arizona didn't have a threat on offense to really stop them from doing that. Arizona's explosive offense, I do think, is still their best run defense. And with Colt McCoy not being able to function as well, that kind of was it for the most part. You felt like the game was pretty much over by the time you got to the half, and it certainly was over coming out when the Panthers were able to score to go up with that score of 30-3 going into that fourth quarter.
Blake, I got a question for you. So what do you think was the worst performance, the offensive game plan or how Vance Joseph decided to approach on the defensive side?
I mean, I would have to say that the offensive approach was in part of it. Some of it, there's only so much you can do with Colt McCoy. I think you could say, hey, Cliff Kingsbury decided in his own territory he's going to have on third down, you got James Conner, Eno Benjamin in the backfield on kind of the long delayed handoff to Eno. Why not just kind of run up there and try to punch it? And then the second play is probably a long yard, maybe like almost a yard and a half. Goes for a quarterback sneak with Colt McCoy. Those are usually best if it's going to be, half a yard or inches. And it gave the ball right back to Carolina right after they'd already gone down the field and scored. And this is practically in Cardinals territory. Mm-hmm. That really is not setting up your defensive coordinator for success. Like it's almost a spot of when you give the ball at least to, favorable thing to the opposing offense so many times. At some point, the bend but don't break defense becomes the we bent too hard, now it's going to break defense. So I think there's some area you can critique Cliff for, but really in this game, I think we really saw not necessarily that Kyler Murray's covering for issues, but more just how important a star quarterback is to the overall ability of a team. And in some case, like I even joked about this at the game and was like, when you're talking about quarterbacks that aren't as talented, you almost got kind of a picture of what if the Cardinals had kept Josh Rosen. Like last week against the Niners, you see your upside. This week against the Panthers, you see the downside. Like you have quarterbacks who are off to make plays. And when you got a guy who's not as athletic, doesn't have the best arm like that backwards against the body throw that was made by Colt McCoy, Kyler Murray can make that throw. Like we've seen him make that crazy throw before. Yeah. And it's like, it's not an advised throw, but when you get these quarterbacks who are able to play outside of structure, extend plays or do more, that's part of what you can't really game plan for as a defense. Like you can't game plan for, all right, we just got to stop this guy from scrambling 9 yards this way and then stop and then moving back and then, making our guy fall down. As long as we plan for that, there's only so much that you can do on the defensive side. And with a more limited quarterback like Colt McCoy, you're at least hoping for a situation where you can have a defensive and run the ball type of game. The Panthers were able to do that to Arizona. That's ultimately why they came away with the win. What's probably most disappointing, I think, for Cardinals fans was that there was just little mistakes that popped up, and you feel like if the run defense got exposed a bit between the Packers game and this game, you wonder at least if Arizona are they going to be set with these two linebackers? Like you drafted 2 in the first round. So do you need another defensive kind of playmaker for the most part? We did have one defensive guy who stepped up in a big way that I think we'll talk about today. But it is one of the spots of where when people start talking over and over about here's a little crack in the defense, here's a crack. Well, they won anyway. Sometimes eventually it takes enough time someone will exploit that defense, exploit that weakness, I should say. And you as an offense has to be able to adjust and overcome that adversity. I think they can overcome it with Kyler. It's just hard to overcome that with Cole.
Yeah, you're completely right. The run defense was just in shambles. I would even say against the Minnesota game, Dalvin Cook looked like he could do whatever he wanted to do. Then we hold them in check for the most part for the rest of the season. Hold them, I mean, other teams. The Packers game comes along, that's a different story. But then we play the Niners and we completely stop them. Yeah, they have injuries, but that's been a zone running team that's always given us issues. And then we come into this game. I mean, Christian McCaffrey looks as healthy as he ever has, right? He was looking absolutely explosive. So I don't blame them to a point, but then I can blame them. And I want to touch on the Jalen Thompson pick as well too. Is Jalen Thompson the stud that you were talking about?
Well, Jalen Thompson was a guy, he's probably the unsung hero for the most part, I think, if you wanted to talk about, a player who ultimately has been kind of languishing in the background behind Budda Baker. He had that interception, but the player I really did want to talk about actually would have been the Cardinals' Zach Allen. He's essentially been playing the role of J.J. Watt, of this internal penetrator on the defensive line. He had a phenomenal game that unfortunately isn't going to show up for the most part. He recovered a fumble that happened earlier, ended up having, I believe there's 4 tackles he had solo, including a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. There's just the fact of it looked like there was a lot of times that he had plays that weren't going to show up on the stat sheet either. He was going to have times where it just looked like he was making a living in the backfield. It was making some of the other players like either adjust, or in one of the cases, he basically gets into PJ Walker late, and that was part of where on a 3rd down pass, he ends up throwing the ball just a bit, I think, in front or behind his receiver. That's something that's encouraging because the Cardinals have been missing that type of defensive tackle essentially since Calais Campbell, defensive end in this slightly different scheme left. They've then got that guy in J.J. Watt and then lose him for the year. So they had a 1st-round grade on Zach Allen the year they drafted him. He's never been really healthy enough for the most part to kind of be able to get enough snaps. He's had times he's missed out for the season, had injuries, one kind of a concerning neck injury. He's finally now getting snaps, and you may end up having kind of a decent 1-2 punch with him. So I think it's hard to be able to just be like, oh yeah, that guy had a couple tackles for loss. Yay, defensive player of the game. But you sometimes have to just look for positives in a game in which you want to just burn the tape that you just watched.
I mean, Budda Baker looked good as well, too. He was the only one able to take down Christian McCaffrey in space multiple times. When Budda came up like a missile, CMC had no idea what to do. That was impressive as hell to me, all things considered. The offense sputtered. We can dive into all this stuff. At the end of the day, we're down our number 1 running back, our number 1 wide receiver. Technically, our number 1 tight end, we could argue Zach Ertz. Number 1 QB, obviously. Our 2 starting guards, and whatever we were missing on the defensive side, including J.J. Watt. Zaven Collins isn't playing right now. He is... Cliff Kingsbury said that Tanner Vallejo has outplayed him, and so therefore Zaven Collins is there. So that's frustrating. So maybe we could see Isaiah Simmons 2.0 next year. For right now, that's a little frustrating. But overall, Blake, are you throwing this whole game in the trash can and moving on to next week and after the bye week, or are there things that you saw that could potentially trip us up in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest area obviously is, and this is kind of a funny, interesting thing. You mentioned all the injuries on the Cardinals sides. Panthers were essentially that too. They brought in Cam Newton for basically like he was like their red zone option quarterback who had 1 pass play and 1 run play given. He ended up joking after the game and said, yeah, how much of the play, but did you get enough for 2 touchdowns? And there was some times where he was able just to pull the ball on the option and throw it. And it didn't seem like Arizona wasn't necessarily prepared, but he's just such an effective runner that he knows where to go. It was hard to see those different angles. So maybe you could look at and say maybe a more mobile quarterback that can make some plays out of structure will give Arizona issues. But I think it comes down to if the 2 teams were pretty much evenly matched as far as defensive teams wanting to run the ball. I think that it came down to Christian McCaffrey being a talented running back who can make these game-breaking plays is something that's big. And it really is ultimately the turnover battle is when you're trying to play defensive run-first football, You turn the ball over 3 times, you're very unlikely to win that game. The Cardinals almost did against the Packers a few weeks ago. They had the Rondale Moore punt. They had the other interception, at least, of Murray, and then the final interception to A.J. Green. I think that's one of the spots where what Cardinals fans can at least be encouraged by a bit is that the team did show at least some sparks of life in that second half, even without Colt McCoy in. He went to the medical tent with a chest injury. We'll see what his status is. It feels much more like Kyler Murray is trending to play against the Seahawks. Like, he was more up and down, bouncing at times on the sidelines. He did practice even in a limited fashion on Friday. If he doesn't play against the Seahawks, it'll be interesting to see if Colt McCoy is back to go, or if it's more of a, all right, Kyler had a pretty bad injury. We're trying to make sure we just get through the bye and do as much as we can. I think it's more likely that he'll be able to, and wanting to go up against Russell Wilson. In that regard, if you say, hey, Kyler's going to go down this season, you win half of the games while he's down, I think most Cardinals fans would take that as a win, even though today was a loss.
We're 8-2.
Absolutely.
And I've seen fans complaining. There's fans like, oh, coaching is terrible. Cliff did this. This is terrible. I'm like, is this like what Patriots fans would feel like when, like Tom Brady doesn't win a game? It's very interesting as far as seeing how we kind of have these type of problems that pop up. And maybe some of it is just that fans ultimately at the end of the day, you want to be entertained. You want to have your team feel like you're in it. It's hard to see these type of blowout games, and it really shows how important the quarterback is to the position. And in some cases, it shows we were spoiled by the Cardinals not having a dud through the first 10 games of the season, right? Like, this is
every
the first
elite team has lost or crapped the bed one game. This was our shit the bed game.
Yeah.
Washington beat the Bucks today.
Yes.
And Chase Young went out in like the second quarter. Last week, who was it? The 6-9 game between the Jags and the Bills.
Yes.
Dallas lost against
Ravens
the Broncos.
lost on Thursday night to Miami. Like all these teams.
Exactly.
Bucks have lost 2 straight.
I mean, the Lions even came out without a loss today.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would be amazing if the Lions end up being the first team to ever go 0-16 twice, because they had go 0-16 and 1, even in a 17-game season. Oh, that team is just in an unfortunate place as far as like you feel like they fight hard each game, they just have no talent, and so that's what
poverty
it comes down
franchise.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's the franchise at least that said, all right, give us Jared Goff, but you need another first because he sucks and we know he's gonna suck while we're playing him. I think he had 11 passing yards or something like that through the game, and somehow the Lions were still tied. And everyone's like, that sounds like Jared Goff football right there. It's why the Rams wanted to get away from that.
If any team was gonna tie those two teams, because if you guys remember, there was I was in Vegas. It was like 3 years ago. The Browns and the Steelers tied because the Browns tied. I remember that game. Yeah, you remember that game? It's just they always tie. Like it's just if you got the Lions, they playing us, they're tying. If you got the Steelers playing anybody in their division, there's a possibility for a tie. It's just garbage.
And it kind of worked in their favor today. What an absolute horrid game too, by the way. I don't know if any of you guys watched that on Red Zone or something. Just an absolutely horrible game. Blake, lift us up a little bit though. You saw some things from Zach Allen. There's some things in the game that you can see tonight. Moving forward though, we've already kind of talked about what to expect from Kyler, and we're playing at Seattle. I mean, let's not lose this fact too. We have a chance to go 4-0 in the division next week. When was the last time we finished 4-2? I mean, was it 2015? Even then, I think we went 3-3, if I'm not mistaken. We've always had trouble with these teams. So give us some other things to build up on based on what you've seen and our ability to bounce back. We've already bounced back once. We can do it again.
Yeah, as far as some of the upside, the fact that when you're talking about the Cardinals having all of these different players out who've been quality players, being able to have some of these young talent step up, or some of these depth guys being able to show up and be able to make plays is, I think, crucially important, not just for future development, but also for the fact that if you feel like that you've got a weakness that you can't overcome, then you're essentially like, it's one of the best examples I can at least give is when you look at how the Arizona Cardinals in 2018, they were still at least like not a awful, like, with Sam Bradford, it was just, okay, quarterback is the problem. You can't win a single game. They brought in Rosen, and then it was once you kind of lost both of the different tackles. And so suddenly you're like, yeah, there's no way. Josh says you can't step up in the pocket and there's a guy's just going to hit him. It was essentially a spot where you were just knowing that you would go out there and lose pretty much every single game unless you were to play the game perfectly. I think with the Cardinals showing that they have that depth and being able to see guys that step in, one of the guys that pops up, I think, at least a lot in that regard, has been Eno Benjamin. Chase Edmonds has been in a contract year. Eno's gone out and run hard, shown great vision. It also gives you confidence that, hey, if James Conner misses any time, it's not like you're going to be looking at the old Zach Zenner days of 2019 where Arizona brought him in off the bat. Kyler, I remember like the Saints game, he's like, goes to hand the ball off to Zenner. Zenner's not there. He's like, okay, guess I'll have to run now. It's just, there's places like that you want to see those guys be able to perform, giving Chris Streveler some confidence to actually lead a touchdown drive down the field. It was very run heavy, but he still was able to hit some of the guys that was there. It's not to say that the third string quarterback is something you want to have, but to be able to see the team kind of rally around him with Colt McCoy out with some of their starters, being able to give a guy who, a lot of the times what we talk about is things that don't pay dividends now do pay dividends overall in the long run. I think another example that you could say for that would be looking at one of the biggest positives, being with how the Arizona Cardinals have continually been able to, and not just guys in the running game, but looking at how Josh Jones had been kind of just this guy that Cardinals fans had been, either dunking on or just upset, wanted him to leave the field. He had a solid game today. And I do think that part of what we saw was when Rodney Hudson was there, he was playing great. When Hudson was out, it looked like he was struggling a lot more. And then when they had their third string center in, it was just got to the point where, and I saw before the game, Hudson was working with Jones on a couple of either pass sets or techniques. And I think it's one of those spots of when you got a player who's young and is fresh and is still getting their way around the league, having someone who can kind of like tap him twice and be like, all right, here's the coverage. I got this guy here. You can go ahead and assist there, or being able to just recognize some of those things. Seeing that, I think, as far as a guy bounce back is what you always want to have, because the Cardinals are expecting a lot of things from Josh Jones. It's a guy that they loved. He ended up dropping to the third round, won the starting spot outright over a veteran this year. You're hoping that he can at least develop, whether it's at one of the guard spots or maybe even at tackle, if this is it for last year for Kelvin Beachum of his deal. Seeing some of those guys being able to bounce back is great. There's some players who you see just mentally aren't able to kind of bounce back from their errors in the league, and they end up just getting down on themselves and are out of it just because it's a difficult place. You have to be able to essentially have a memory like a goldfish, which is 3 seconds later, it's gone. Like, that's just how it works in the NFL. And to be able to see a couple of those players being able to bounce back from difficulties has been great.
We don't want to keep you too much longer. We know you got some deadlines that you got to hit, but I know Amit has another question he'd like to ask. Please, Amit.
Shoot. Blake, who's your Super Bowl predictions right now as of this week?
All right, this week, I think that it's one of the spots you almost feel like it could be a coin flip for that. I think that it really, really depends on, are the Cardinals going to be that team that is going to be so good against teams on the road you don't want them to get the number one seed? Because we've seen Arizona has been blowing teams out by double digits on the road. If currently as things would stand right now, that would be where the Packers would have that number one seed. We'll see what happens as far as if they with the Rams for that one next week. I think that the Rams have started to show enough cracks between them and the Bucs. Really feels like it's almost down to a 3-pony race of with Dak, with the Cardinals, and then even with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, they're getting back guys like David Bakhtiari. We'll see on the status of Aaron Jones, but obviously Jair Alexander is coming back. I think that it's going to be kind of between those three teams that seem to have it all together of having great pass rushers, solid coverage, being able to run the football down your throat, and having quarterbacks who can make plays down the field in and out of structure. I think if you had to say gun to the head for that one, I think Arizona is still the favorite, but we really want to see what Kyler Murray will look like after the injury, because right now, obviously, we saw Dallas get down bad. We've seen the Packers, at least ultimately, just seem like they've melted, especially against the Saints in that first game of the season. I think it's right now they're slightly ahead just because we've seen what Kyler can do. I think that we'll hopefully see him prove that again next week against the Seahawks, because, man, the way Tom Brady's going, the MVP race, technically speaking, is after this week, it's still flush wide open, because you said Bucks losing 2 in a row, Tom Brady not looking the same without Gronk. It really does give you, at least if Arizona, as a consolation prize, being able to have a guy who is that top 5 quarterback you've always wanted to have in Arizona, and he's under 25 years old. That's what you've wanted. That's what you're hoping you'll get to see next week against a Russell Wilson who put up a got back from how long it was with rehab or something, like did like 19
5
hour a day,
weeks, 6 weeks, something.
19-hour a day finger stretches to put up a big goose egg. So maybe you should have tried like, the little Technic skateboard deck or done 24-hour finger workouts, Russ. Maybe
Should have put the pin back in.
or you should have just taken the check down like Russ. Yeah, should have taken the check down. Russ, he had I think 2 interceptions in the end zone. Should have been 3 because he's just
That
like,
game
no,
was awful.
guys, I can do it. I can throw for a touchdown here, and everyone's like, Russ, your running back is right open there for.
Yeah,
for
do you remember the
first down
Super
flat.
Bowl? Come on, man.
Oh gosh, no. It's a big year for at least. I do think at least Arizona, they have a big upcoming rest of their season. Fortunately, you'll get some teams like the Bears and the Lions, this hapless Seahawks team at least. A lot's going to come down to how they play against the Rams and the Cowboys, but still got to get back to that one game at a time mentality. Hopefully, it'll be with Kyler Murray and maybe or maybe not DeAndre Hopkins.
And the bye week cannot come soon enough for this team. So I can't wait to wash this taste out of my mouth for the Seahawks game. We're going to get a week off, and then it's just going to be right back to it for the push of the season. Blake Murphy, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I can just follow all of my crazy, memes and tweets over at Blake Murphy 7 on Twitter. Try to at least be able to just kind of cover some of the games. Always happy to be able to kind of chat or go over stuff with cards. And then all of the writing work can be found as well at revengeofthebirds.com, as well as the ROTB pod or the Revenge of the Birds podcast as well. Try to put down at least 1 to 2 episodes each week. And we're entering Seahawks week, so some friendly rivalry banter will ensue.
Can't wait.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. I've been listening to you for a while. Been a fan for a while. Thank you again for coming on, and we'll catch you soon. Okay, sir?
Okay. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Appreciate it, Blake.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Fortunately for us, Vlogs and Roy entered the building, and we can talk about the mighty Western Conference champion Phoenix Suns. They were at least able to salvage the Sunday, right? Arizona State last night did. They beat Washington, but they just looked poor doing it. The only reason we are 7-3 is because the rest of the Pac-12 is also complete trash. It's the worst 7-3 team I've seen, but 7-3 is 7-3. You can beat Oregon State next week, and then Arizona, all of a sudden you have a bowl game for a potential 10th win. 10 wins at Arizona State has been hard to come by, if nothing else. As far as Arizona State basketball, what the fuck? And that's all I'm going to say about that. That's Arizona State's basketball. So Phoenix Suns tonight, they beat, I forgot what the final score was because it was an absolute beatdown, but they beat the Houston Rockets for the second time already this year. It was 115-89. They are 9-3. They've matched the bubble run 8-0, but they've got a really talented team tomorrow night in Minnesota who destroyed the Lakers 2 nights ago. 3 nights ago? It was a Friday night. While I was over in Wendover losing all of my money and all of my life savings. And then they play the Clippers tonight and get blown out. So they're an up and down team as well, too. But you know what? It's the return of Patrick Beverley is going to be guarding Devin Booker tomorrow. I'm actually really excited to see that. But they won tonight. It was easy. They ran away with it. They were only up by 4 after the first quarter, but Booker scored 16 of his 26. You kind of thought Booker was going to have one of those games, didn't need it, and they just absolutely handled business, and they've handled business for a while. JJ, talk to me about the Suns, what you saw tonight, moving forward, just whatever.
So the last 3 games, we have improved tremendously to what we're used to. The Portland game, it took a little bit, but that last 5-minute stretch really sealed the deal with getting a double-digit lead. And the last game against Memphis, that game wasn't close at all from the bottom half of the second quarter and on. Even though Ja had a pretty decent game, just nothing was clicking for them. Turnovers was killing Memphis, and Phoenix just took advantage of that. But Frank had a really good game against Memphis. He didn't necessarily have a good game tonight against the Rockets, but
and he's not that dude. But yeah,
he's not that guy. But we wish the best for him and stuff. But the Suns have really gained control to back what they were last season. We have a better start than we did last season. If you want to compare the two. So that's a positive to look at. And Rockets were just playing really sloppy tonight. They're playing a lot of ISO ball. You guys think it's weird that Jalen Green, since he's a rookie this year, has the ball in his hand majority of the time over Kevin Porter and Christian Wood?
No, it makes sense. It makes complete sense to me.
To you,
I
why?
mean, Jalen Green is going to be a better player than Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. has statistically not ever shot that well from the field. I see the talent with Jalen Green, but I also see that they're just throwing the ball out there and they're saying go. That's what the Rockets are doing, man. They're throwing it out.
no
They're
system.
saying go. There's no system. There's no structure. They knew that they weren't going to win this year. It's more about getting these young dudes play, getting them against the NBA's best and seeing what they can do moving forward. I mean, I didn't understand the Thies signing to begin with. I thought that was weird. I also
keep
think
on
it's weird
forgetting
that
he's on there.
Yeah, I still think it's weird that they've got Eric Gordon and that they traded for DJ Augustine, who is now a DNP and doesn't even play. So there's some things that I questioned regarding the roster makeup, but I see where they're going with it. And this is a 3 to 5 year build if they stick with it. It really is. I could see this being kind of like the Lakers, 5-6 years ago when they had Lonzo Ball, Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram. You know what I mean? I could see this team being that if they stick to it, but it's definitely going to be a while. They're just roll it out, let them play. That's what the Rockets are, and they can beat you if they're on. They almost beat us, 10 days ago, 12 days ago?
I don't know if I was Kevin Porter, I'll feel some sort of way, just because like this was my team before his. Yeah, Jalen Green, his potential is up here, and we've kind of seen what Kevin Porter can do. But like,
I mean, Kevin Porter got cut from the Cavs, though, bro. He should know he's not that dude. If he was that dude, he wouldn't have been cut.
Yeah, to get cut by the Cavs,
You say the same thing about Gary Payton, though. Gary Payton Jr. has been cut, was undrafted, and now this guy's balling out in Golden State.
But he's not trying to be the dude.
He's not trying to be the dude, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. is a career 32% 3-point shooter, and he's chucking them up at a higher rate this year at almost 4, and he's shooting worse last year. So Kevin Porter Jr. is really not that great of a shooter, but he's young. He's 21. Jalen Green's 19. These are young guys. Like, you expect them not to be able to do win a whole bunch of games and have it be under them this early. So they're rolling it out there. They're just trying to gain confidence. That's what they're doing. They're trying to gain it. And they got talent. They do have talent. Nobody can say they don't have talent.
Absolutely. And JaVale McGee, he was definitely probably the most consistent guy tonight. He was just bodying Christian Wood and just grabbing boards and contesting. And how many blocks did he have tonight? 3, 4. There was one block.
3 blocks
that was
14,
called a foul.
14 boards.
Yes. So he had one block, but they called it a foul. But it was all ball. It was just how I forget who took the layup. But JaVale McGee had a great game tonight. Booker, he had 16 in the first, and we knew that Booker wasn't going to be playing in the second quarter like that just because of Monty's rotation, icing him, same old Monty. But Chris Paul finally had a really, really good game since the Lakers game. Man. Oh, that nutmeg was nasty.
That was nasty. And he only had 4 assists, which is crazy, but 7 steals.
7 steals.
Jesus Christ.
And the Mikal Bridges and Devin Booker chemistry, just getting a ball off a fast break, and Mikal's already down the court, already ready to for the easy 2. So that's definitely what I love seeing right now. But 8 in a row, we go against Minnesota tomorrow, and everything I've been reading on Reddit and Instagram from just Minnesota fans, they're not impressed with Cat at all the last 3-4 years. It just complete disappointment, and they said what I'm seeing, fans want to get rid of him. I'm not saying we get him, but there's obviously some
coaching matters. Coaching matters. That can make or break a career. Amit, you've got 2 juicy takes I've been wanting to hear. I'm going to go with you in just a second, but I just want to say this about the Phoenix Suns is that it seemed like they adjusted. They remember what playing regular season basketball is like, right? And I don't want to say they're on cruise control, but they're just doing what they do. Yeah. And it's just been fun to watch. They're doing what they do, and they know when to attack, where to attack. Some nights shots are going to fall. Some nights they aren't. The defensive approach has been there. The rotations are consistently there again. They're a very, very consistent team. this is going to be a hard team to beat. Not in the playoffs, just in the regular season. This is going to be a very hard team to beat. And you look up and down the schedule, it's hard to pinpoint losses. I mean, we were all thinking they might blow it against Memphis. And then look at this, This is a very, very good team right now. Amit, take the floor. I want to hear your Booker take before your Ayton take. Let's do that first.
All right. So I'm watching Booker play. He's taken a lot of characteristics from CP3.
Sure.
Where he's just like, I just want to win. I don't care about stats. I'm going to set a back screen for JaVale McGee in the second quarter to get him a dunk. Do you see Kobe doing that? Do you see Jordan do that? Usually they pop out to get the ball and go ISO.
Jordan made the play for Kerr to have him hit that jumper back in the finals.
But that was a pass. Ago. I mean, it's when it's off ball. Like, this is off ball. Like, we're saying he's doing shit off ball that superstars don't do, right? I'm watching this guy and I'm going, like, I'm going to say it because I never say this shit. It's championship or bust this year. Like, we're winning a championship this year. And Booker, it's on him. And he's taking that lead.
Boom shakalaka!
He can go back-to-back 40-point games in the finals, which no one is like. When was the last time someone done that? Triple-double in the Western Conference Finals.
He's heating up.
I'm already on fire, bro.
Keep going. And, I'm saving it for the end.
And he puts up that 48-point game against the Lakers in the first series to close them out. I mean,
he's on fire.
He's putting it all together right now. Like, and it's not about. It's the little things that he does. I watch his game. I'm just watching him grab a rebound, block a shot, grab the ball, come down and pull up a three, right? I forget the game that it was, but he did that, right? It's clicking. Like, it's slowing down for him the way it slowed down for CP3 all those years, except he's 25 and CP3 is 35 or 36, whatever he is.
40 something, yeah.
Dude, you're watching an all-timer. Appreciate this.
There it is.
This motherfucker's spitting.
Wow. We're watching an all-timer. That is actually a really amazing thing to hear. He's an old school player. The only thing that I want to see Book do more, and this is more on coaching than it is on Booker. I want him to come off little screens for, I don't know, an 18, 20-foot shot. Maybe not 20, but a 16 to 18-footer, just like Rip Hamilton did, just like Reggie Miller did, just like Ray Allen did. I would love to see him do that. Now, I know that kind of takes away your energy a little bit, running back and forth around screens and doing all that, but at the same time, then he doesn't have to do a lot of one-on-one ISO stuff, which I think takes his percentage down. He's not a great, amazing scorer like Tracy McGrady. He's not that electric scorer, so he's not going to be a Tracy McGrady. But he can be a more studly Reggie Miller. That's what I've always kind of thought him as. Maybe a more athletic Ray Allen, a better bag than Ray Allen had, who was an amazing player, not as good as a three-point shooter.
He's got a better bag.
Yeah, but Reggie Miller with more of a bag, with more handles. You know what I mean? Because he's so good at coming off of screens, and he's so good just picking and popping and just step back, something like that. He just needs a little bit of room in the mid range. He's so good. I'd love to hear that. But you've got a DeAndre Ayton take.
I think for Booker to really elevate his game this season, I want to see, like, usually he's the first one down back playing defense on a fast break. I wanted to start taking charges or at least pressing up. He usually has a tendency of just like
he did that in the playoffs.
It's just like just knowing your restrictive area and knowing that your feet are set. Like I think a lot of times he doesn't just follow through with it, even though he can get the charge easily. But and then the other thing too is him sending more firm picks and then rolling off or just popping out. Because a lot of the defenders just leave him as soon as he starts rotating, and he's open for the three or just the long mid jumper. So if he sells a pick and just kind of takes himself out of the play, he's open for a shot more often than not. So if I see that a little more, just him more working off the ball, I think he can really elevate his game more than a Reggie Miller or a Tracy McGrady. Well, not necessarily in the scoring aspect, of just being all around a dangerous person that you can't
All he's got to do
keep your
is
eyes
just
on.
keep 1 foot on the 3-point line, and he's 100%.
Oh, yeah.
That's damn true.
100%.
Here's
He
some
spit
stats
it.
on books real quick when I was looking him up earlier. His field goal percentage is overall down 4 points. Not too much, and there's still time. Obviously, he can bring it up. This is just from last year. His 3-point percentage is up 0.8% from last year. But get this, his rebounds, career year so far and away by two plus rebounds. Okay. Assists, not so much a career year, but better than last year. He's up 1.2. Steals are up just a little bit, and turnovers are up a smidge from last year, 3.1 to 3.2. So kind of about average of where he was. And the blocks are up a half a point as well. So all these other little things are actually going up for him. He's going to the free throw line less, which a lot of players are in the league. His free throw percentage is down 4 points. So I expect that to level out throughout the time, but he's averaging the same amount of shots as he did last year. So he's averaging 3 points less. I think that's directly contributed to the amount of free throws he's not getting as well, because he's shooting the same. And you can't really expect some players to shoot higher than 48.4%, which is what he shot last year. That's hard to do. So he's doing a lot of little things. You are right, Amit. You are spot on there. We are seeing an all-timer, but I got to get into DeAndre Ayton. So hit me with that.
Okay. So we were a little confused because when we did our last podcast, we weren't sure if he was there on the bench. He's on the bench. So I'm comparing it to Kelly Oubre's situation, where Kelly didn't have a contract going into the bubble. Ayton doesn't have a contract going in. He's practicing. He's showing up with the team. He's there, right? He's not going to play. Why would he play? Why would he forget about the Robert Sarver, Jalen Rose?
I don't want him then.
Why? It's his contract.
And it's your job. And it's your job to play.
Yeah, but if he gets hurt, then he's not going to play for anybody. Like, he's just taking care of himself. I'm okay with that.
I'm not at all. You're still under contract and you're making more money than I don't even know how many people in the world. I'm not going there with that shit. You're a professional. And if you're not going to, you need to come out and say that. Because then you can strong arm the whole thing. You can get a deal done, and then you can go and play. He's showing up with the team. It's not like he isn't showing up. Like, Kelly Oubre went into the bubble with these guys. He chose to go in the bubble and be away from everybody, right? Right.
Ayton's traveling with these guys. I mean, he's showing up in practice and passing the ball and doing all that stuff. I just think, we got to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point. Especially, I'm taking the Sarver thing out of the whole situation. I'm just saying.
Well, that's the X factor too. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like, we don't know about that part, but and it's really cool. Jalen Rose happened to go out of country as soon as he dropped that bomb without any receipts and just left us with it, which is like,
which we're finding out that may not be the case, that it actually happened or not. So,
right.
And what we are referring to, if anybody catched the last podcast last Sunday, is that at the time we speculated that Robert Sarver called DeAndre Ayton the lazy N-word or a lazy N-word. And so we all came on the podcast. We're like, dude, don't fucking play. If that's the way your owner's treating you, no, don't play. Turns out Jalen Rose is out of country, and Stephen A. Smith, and I want to say somebody else, I'm not sure, came out and said that's not the case. That didn't happen. It was fabricated or not true or whatever it may be. And we haven't heard from Jalen Rose yet, so hopefully he's back sometime soon. So if that's not the case and he's not playing because he hurt, you're like, yeah, I don't want you to play. If he's not playing because he wants to get paid, then I feel like they would strong arm the Suns at this point and hold out. That's what you should do. Not just be silent and not say anything, unless that's the move, but which we don't know. But if that's the case and he's not saying anything and it is contract related, you got to fucking play. You're under contract and you're already making more than anybody else has.
But did you guys have a problem with Oubre not playing in the bubble?
I took it as they were moving on from Oubre and they didn't want to see him and they wanted to give other people action. That's the way I took it at the time.
I felt like he didn't want to play because he was hurt and he didn't have a contract. Like, he could have played, but he was just like, fuck it. But
injuries were kind of fucking weird during that time, right? Like, we weren't sure who had what and where. And then the Aaron Baines situation, we really weren't sure if they were going to play because they didn't come out and say like, no, they're out the whole time. if I remember, it was day to day, or there was something, or we all expected them to come back and play at some point to help get us to the playoffs. But
Well, I believe that Baines was day to day and Oubre was out indefinitely, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I expected Baines to play, and he was another guy that didn't have a contract, didn't play.
Yeah. But I took it as we're the worst team going in the bubble. This is a chance to have other guys show up and play and see what we have moving to next year. I don't think any of them thought we would go 8-0. And by the time you're 5-0, 6-0, why would you fuck up the chemistry and bring anybody else back, right?
Yeah, true.
But we don't know what's going on with DA. JJ, what do you think is going on with DA? Does he just not want to play?
So I see where both of you are coming from, and I do agree on both sides to a certain extent. But me looking at from through his perspective, Robert Sarver thing aside, he's a big dude. Big guys don't last long in this league. When you have like a knee problem, I think it's better just to sit out until you're 100% or at least 95.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just how I'm looking at it. And plus, like, we're on an 8 winning streak right now. If we can spare games without him playing and still pull out the dub, might as well just wait for him to be fully there, especially if he's traveling with the team and warming up and practicing and all that. He's still working. He's just not doing the overtime being the games. So I'm backing DA up on him just not playing right now. Being a big guy, you don't want to be messing with knee problems. Going knee to knee with somebody that can cause really bad problems with cartilage issues and messing with your MCL and ACL. So that's stuff you don't want to mess with. And DA, you're cool with me. If you come back in the next 2 weeks, I'm cool with that.
If you come back in the next 2 weeks. It's a weird situation because we don't know. And we can speculate all we want. We really don't know. Maybe it is sore. I've had a calf strain where I could be doing anything and all of a sudden it flares up again. I've pulled my groin, hamstring, all that stuff, and I get it. And I'm not a professional athlete. I'm just a parent who bends over and all of a sudden throws his damn back out. So from an injury standpoint, I get it. From a fan, selfish standpoint, I'm a little frustrated. But anybody that's out there saying we don't need him because we're 8-0 or 7-0 without him is completely insane.
Yeah.
The defensive side, especially. Offensive, we can have a different conversation. Like, yeah, we don't need him on the offensive side. We don't. This proves that we don't need him on the offensive side. We have other players that can step up, do this and that. Defensively, we have no one, not even JaVale McGee, that can step up and do what DA did and can do. And that's where I'm missing DeAndre Ayton the most. Does anybody disagree?
No, 100%.
No.
We saw it in the playoffs, what he can do on the defensive side and what he can do in a limited offensive role and still put up 20 and 10 with multiple blocks. Like dude is the dude. And you're not going to get that from JaVale McGee in 40 minutes a game. But you'll get that from DA. That's what we need. And you see it, like the verticality that we're missing, the foot speed on switching out to point guards that Frank can't do. Like, Frank's sanity ended, in my opinion, ended tonight. Like, I mean, it's done. We'll see. It's a Timberwolves, but
See you, man.
he's got to deal with Cat. So you can't replace this guy. Like, you got to pay this guy. You can't replace him. He's worth it.
DA is still a top 5 center, big man in the league. He moves better than most guys, and he is relatively healthy majority of the time. So, this isn't somebody you can just replace. Frank doesn't get boards. JaVale is like foul city. So that's we can't just rely on JaVale and Kaminsky. Okay, let's get that straight. So any Suns fans, I think that we don't need DA, needs their eyes checked and maybe not watch basketball for a couple months. So
and he's coachable, right? He's coachable.
DA's very coachable. He adjusted to CP3, and not a lot of players have been able to do that.
That's a good point.
And his ego is in check. Like, he's not like out here like Cat where he needs to shoot like 10 threes a game. You know what I mean? Like, you guys like this don't come around that often. Like, he's young. We got to remember he's really young. Like, he
wants to be great.
Yeah.
And that's why it was frustrating why we couldn't get a deal done, because you were afraid if something like this happened, we couldn't pinpoint the exact reason of why he's out. And we all just wanted the core to stick together. So that's part of the reason. I mean, the stats looked not amazing. 14 of 40 from 3 overall, which was 35%. The Rockets shot pretty abysmal, 7 for 32 at 21%. The rebounds were 48 to 52.
Negative
19 to 19 assists. They had 23 turnovers. We had 10. That was kind of the difference in the game. I saw a lot of good things from Campaign tonight, only playing 19 minutes and 13 points. I thought this wasn't his breakout game. This was a getting back to what he was game, getting back to that firecracker. I didn't see the full game against Memphis, so I can't speak to that, but I thought Campaign really showed up tonight. I thought Landry Shamet, even though he's still kind of in a shooting slump to a point, I thought he was moving and doing things that he was supposed to do. I thought this team was not necessarily firing on all cylinders, but they were damn near close. And if this was a very, very important game or a playoff game, I think they could have done even more in this game. But it was the Rockets. There's a certain game plan against them. I get it. Let's talk about some NBA scores before we wrap it up here. Unfortunately, the damn Lakers won 114 to 106. That's all we need to say about that. The Hawks finally won a game, you guys.
They needed one.
They were down bad, and they did it against the Bucks.
42.
Yep, Trae Young dropping 42 with a big game.
One.
There we go. We needed that.
Warriors finally lose the game. Schedule, and more tough games are coming up on the Warriors schedule. But 106 to 102, Miles Bridges is still a stud. Stephen Curry with only 24 points, you guys, only. Nets obviously beat the Thunder. No surprise there. Here are the two interesting games of the night for me, though.
Ooh.
Nuggets destroying the Trailblazers. Now, remember, when we started 8-8, people, I hate the reload. When we started 8-8, things were going bad. Monty's very first year when DA got suspended, there was not the greatest of things, but we all saw the signs moving forward. I don't know if they're seeing the signs with Chauncey Billups at this point, which is why Blazers uprise. And you can come at me on Twitter for having my own opinion all you want, but this is why nobody believed them going into it, is that you're relying on a lot of players on the bench that are unproven. And now you couple that with Dame not having the best of seasons and the new coach seemingly not adjusting the way you thought they would. This is why you're seeing them struggle like that. And then the Bulls taking down the Clippers. Bulls are 9-4. They are a legit top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, but the Eastern Conference is actually pretty good as a whole right now. They beat the Clippers. Thank you very much. We always appreciate that. And let's go to the standings right now. Let's start with the East. Are you guys good with that?
As you're pulling that up, I just got a question. Who's a bigger threat, you think? It's only 10, 11 games in. The Cavs or the Bulls?
Oh, the Bulls.
The Bulls.
The Bulls. I'm not buying the Cavs at all.
Bulls.
The length that the Cavs have.
So
they have a million.
Rubio.
They just lost.
Guys.
They just lost. Colin Sexton.
And that's good for them because now Rubio and Garland fit better than Sexton and Garland did.
Well,
I never liked Sexton running the offense. I've never been a fan of that. But Garland is cold though. I like him.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying a team of Jared Allen, Darius Garland. I mean, I like Lauri Markkanen to a point. He can do some things. Isaac Okoro actually really impressed me last year. But I'm not taking like Denzel Valentine, and I'm not taking these dudes seriously yet. Like that's a team that has a lot to prove for me. Whereas the Bulls, when you've got killers like Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball doing what he does, you've got Alex Caruso coming off of the bench, obviously DeMar DeRozan and Vujacic. I'm not buying the Cavs over the Bulls. And Iverson kind of nails it here for me, by the way. Cleveland going to fall apart by December. Believe me, their next few games is Boston, Golden State, Nets twice, and us or something like that.
So. Let's see, man.
You never know. You never know. It could just click. It could just work. I do like Evan Mobley though. Evan Mobley's a stud.
He's vertical, man. He's more vertical than Ayton is. Like he's just long. He just blocks a lot of shots.
So other than the bottom 2 teams in the East, which are the Magic and the Pistons, which is kind of where everybody thought, except Romp was really high on the Pistons, if you guys remember. This is a really weird Eastern Conference. Really weird. Like at the top, Washington, nobody expected Washington to do this. Nobody did, especially Kyle Kuzma's washed and all the guys KCP was washed. They come in, they're making fucking adjustments and they're winning and they're doing stuff without Russell Westbrook. Go figure. All without Roy Hachimura and Thomas Bryant as well too. But Bradley Beal is that dude. Brooklyn Nets at 2. Everybody expected them there. The Bulls, I had them finishing 4th. Obviously, that's expected to a point. Cleveland's a surprise. Then Miami and Philly to round out the top 6. Okay, that sounds good. But then you go into these next teams. New York, Charlotte, Toronto, Boston. I didn't think Toronto was going to be anywhere close to playoff position. It's early. I get that. Boston's falling off. And then Milwaukee, definitely expected them to have a championship drought or a hangover. Totally saw that coming. Indiana 6-8. I thought they'd be better, but nobody saw Atlanta going 5-9.
By the way,
interesting
Indiana,
Eastern Conference.
real quick, Indiana. Torrey Craig is playing less than 20 minutes, putting up goose eggs. He is going to be bought out. He's going to be back on the Suns. I have a feeling.
Let's go.
I have a feeling, dude.
I want Torrey.
He doesn't fit.
He's on fire.
He does not fit on that team at all.
Yeah,
like he's the last guy off their bench right now.
It's weird. It's weird watching that. I mean, everything goes through Domantas Sabonis, dude, and that dude is a stud. I love Domantas, and I have always wanted him on the Suns. Looking over to the Western Conference, you kind of have a clear of who the good teams are, but there's a lot of muck in there. So other than Houston, New Orleans, and San Antonio, everybody's kind of still in play to a point because I think Minnesota has a talent. Obviously, it doesn't look like they're putting it together, but I think they have the talent to put something together.
But I would say, who are the good teams in the West? Like, other than the Sun, like we know the Suns are good, but who else is good?
Well, first off, Oklahoma City's already overachieving, being right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Sacramento Kings, they do their thing where they start 4-1 and then lose absolutely everything else after that. So the Kings are the Kings again. The Blazers, I'm surprised at where they at. I thought they would be a little bit better, but they just look in shambles. Memphis can look straight up deadly and then get blown out by us. And they lost again last night, if I'm not mistaken, on a back-to-back.
Yep.
Lakers, I mean, LeBron comes back. I expect them to actually be worse.
Clips are better than Dallas.
Clips are better than Dallas. I don't trust either teams. I don't trust anybody that's surrounded by Luka.
So I don't know if you guys have looked at it. I saw it on Twitter. Basically, the Warriors haven't beaten any good teams, and same with the Utah Jazz. They have not beat any good teams.
That's usually how it goes with those teams. So
the Utah Jazz are actually really bad. Like considering the teams that they played and they lost to, they should be a lot better than what their record.
Clips, Mento, Oklahoma, Memphis.
That's the one they lost in overtime.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
OKC, Charlotte, New Orleans, Houston. I mean, Atlanta's a good team.
But Atlanta's a decent team.
Chicago's a good team.
Really shitty.
They destroyed Chicago without Vujacic, though. And then Charlotte, but they've got Brooklyn, Cleveland, Detroit, Toronto, Philly, Portland, LA, and then us back to back. I mean, it's all going to even out.
Yeah,
it is all going to even out.
I'm not bought in on the Warriors at all. I think they're frauds.
No, Jazz are frauds. Denver, I'm not going to say are frauds by any stretch.
When Jamal comes back, we'll talk about them.
Yep. Jamal comes back. That could either boost him or break him, honestly.
Yeah.
And we'll
see
what's going on. What do you guys think
of the whole Jokic thing, though?
Oh, with that push?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so no one's talking about this, but literally on that fast break, Jokic hit Bam like square in the face.
Yeah.
And he was doing that continuously the whole night. Like Jokic was playing really physical, not getting the calls for it. So I think Morris acted out of retaliation. Yeah, it was a strong shoulder, but Jokic, he cracks pretty easily. Like it was definitely excessive. But Morris is being Morris, so
yeah.
I don't mind that it was on Morris, let's put it that way. But all of a sudden, they've played 12, 13 games or something. And the last time we saw that was against the Suns in campaign. So in the last 15 games, he's done something like that twice. It's worth noting, it's worth mentioning.
Oh, yeah.
And if it happens again in the next month, then you start having, anger issues. And I don't know. Personally, it's at the end of a game. Shit happens. You're pushing stuff. But the thing with the Jokic brothers, I think, is completely unfucking called for. Like, you do not need to have KGB on the sidelines and then tweeting shit to other people. Like, that shit is so unnecessary. Like, no fan should act in any type of manner towards an NBA player, even if you're related to somebody on the floor, man. No
Watch
fans
the
should act
Malice
like
to the
that.
Palace documentary on Netflix.
Dude,
you'll learn real quick.
No fans should ever fucking say anything like that, like the stuff that they were saying to Book and campaign, and like they were tweeting out to NBA players. Dude, there is absolutely no fucking place for that. That's garbage.
Do you guys know who Tyler Tynes is?
I do not.
He writes for The Ringer. He's done some cool stuff.
Okay.
I follow him on Twitter. Him and I got into a thing because he was basically like, he was just glorifying this whole thing with the Morris twins and being like North Philly. And I was just like, what's like, what, like, this is the identity you want to have, is just to be a cheap shotter or just to be tough. And he was like, yeah, I grew up listening to Beanie Siegel. And I'm like, yeah, me too, bro. But my identity is not Beanie Siegel. My identity is a bunch of other stuff. Like, why do you want to be known for just being able to fight people?
That's why I just
don't get it. I just don't get it with these Morris twins, man. I don't get these guys at all. Like, what do you? Because they're not really gonna fight, right? They're not gonna fight somebody. They're gonna throw these cheap shots and then get cheap shotted and act like they've gotten killed. If you watch the end of that thing with Jokic, he laid down on the ground like CP3 when he gets hit, because CP3 sells that shit. And he was selling it like CP3. Like, it's just a bitch move. It's a bitch move, dude. Just play basketball.
I completely agree, but they're the enforcers. That's their role. Bad
Enforcing
boys.
what?
You gotta love
it. No one's fighting. It's not hockey. No one's fighting.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a different type of league. People aren't doing that. If everybody was throwing elbows and doing the Jordan rules and pushing people down in the lane, we can have a different conversation. But they're not doing that. You're right.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it just turned me off. Like, I was thinking, like, I remember the 80s and how people it would just be physical. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's just play basketball.
Yep.
And maybe that's me, 40-year-old pickup basketball guy. It's like, let's just hoop. We don't need to fight. Let's just play.
We're old, man. Considering that we're old school, we're just old now.
Yeah.
8 in a row. They play tomorrow night. They're going to play Wednesday. We get another post-game pod, by the way. Get another post-game podcast on Wednesday. I just had their schedule up. Arizona State plays on Tuesday. And then they have a really, really big matchup on Thursday night against San Diego State. Me and my good friend Albert are actually going to go to a bar and watch this game because he's a San Diego State fan and I'm an Arizona State fan. Haven't gotten to do that in a long time, so I'm personally looking forward to that. What else we got going? Next Saturday night, Arizona State Sun Devils are going to take on the mighty Oregon State Beavers. I'm going to try to coerce Eric from Blazers Uprise to come join us and talk about his beloved Beavers. That sounds really weird saying it like that, by the way. Hopefully we'll get him on, but a lot of sports action going on. And then U.S. men's national team with the big juicy W. Christian Pulisic with the nice header to pull out a 2-0 victory over Mexico. They play Jamaica Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken. So a chance, they're already ahead in the table due to tiebreaker, but a chance to really pull ahead and
they have
just
to
kind of pull
focused,
away.
Man.
Stay focused.
They lay down on these games, man. Sometimes when they play Jamaica or like some of these other, like they just lay down. They'll draw or they'll do something stupid, give up an own goal or something. They got to finish this.
Dude, need to stay above water here and create some space between the third position and the fourth position, right? That fourth position, create some space, make the tournament. I would love to go to the World Cup, and I think I speak for a lot of soccer fans. So Suns tomorrow at Minnesota, by the way. So a little three-game road trip, but this one's back-to-back. So they're traveling from Houston to Minnesota. That's already tough. Then they play Wednesday against Dallas, post-game podcast. At home. Then they play Friday against Dallas at home. And then next Sunday, we'll have another dual header, you guys. We'll have another Cardinals at Seattle, Suns versus Denver post-game wrap. So hopefully next Sunday is a little bit brighter for us, but we have a tough week coming up. I'm looking at the season. I've told you guys week by week, this is a little bit of a defining week coming up because it's Minnesota, Dallas, Denver. A lot of Western Conference foes, man. So 4-0.
If you look at the schedule, if this team plays focused and healthy, they're not going to lose until they get to the Nets. I think that's like the next game after that. I feel like this team could rip off another 5-6 games easily.
What's the record with most wins in a row? Isn't it like 22?
Our team
Like,
or
total or
overall?
Suns?
Just in general, like the record.
I'll look it up real quick while you're talking.
Our team is 14.
I believe the
We've
Lakers
never won
hold
more
it.
than 14 in a row.
33.
Oh, 33. Oh, shit. Wow. Hang on.
Phoenix Suns most wins in a row. Nothing's really coming up right now. It says 8, but that's just the stretch that we're on right now.
Yeah.
Maybe in the season. I don't know. Do you guys think we are going to go 4-0 this week, or will we drop one? And which one will that be? Amit.
If anything, like we played the Mavs back to back, so one of those games I can see us losing them. But I think we got revenge games on everybody, dude. This team is so petty. With Chris Paul and Devin Booker, these guys, they do not want to lose any games. They do not want to lose any games.
And we remember the Minnesota T-Wolves game last year.
Yes,
when
2 games. We lost 2 back to back.
No. Oh, yeah. But Anthony, Ant, and Cat both went for 40 against us.
Yeah,
2 years or last year. So this is the team that can beat us. Minnesota is good. Minnesota's good, y'all. They just don't play up to their ability due to coaching. But when they're on, I'm worried. We're going to watch Patrick Beverley guard Devin Booker tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting thing to talk about and tweet about. I think they're going to go 3-1. I don't know where the L is. JJ, 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, 0-4.
I'm going 4-0. Like I think with Cat being in a slump, what I've been seeing statistically and what everybody's saying, I don't think Cat is really going to elevate tomorrow. It's definitely going to be the Anthony Edwards show. But if we let Ant have his, I think we can definitely take advantage of everybody else and just outplay them. Then with the Dallas, it's the same system that they've had for the last 3 years. Give Luka the ball. Like he's going to find Hardaway on the wing.
We'll him up just fine.
Yeah. And like all you really need to worry about is Brunson coming off the bench and then just Hardaway on the wing. Luka, he's going to get the calls. We just have to deal with that and just overcome that.
They will.
Which we will. I'm leaning towards 4-0. But yeah.
And here we go. We are starting to get into it, Phoenix Suns fans. I'm not going to play the outro tonight. We're just going to end it here. I'm going to keep words of wisdom simple for all of us, and that's just going to be kind, y'all. Just be kind to everybody, and be kind to your fellow Phoenix Suns fan. Holy shit, Suns Twitter and Suns Facebook can be a toxic-ass place, including myself. So also real quick, I want to touch on JJ still has not gotten a haircut, and we're keeping note of that because some people said Thanksgiving, some people said Christmas.
At least shave, man. At least shave. Make it look like you did something.
I shaved my beard. I shave it down, but
did you?
All y'all can fuck off. Yeah. No, it grows in pretty quick. I have that 5 a.m. and it just kind of grows in within like a day or two.
It's a midnight shadow, bro. It starts
grows in and out and everywhere.
Yeah, but like I said, fuck off. But my barber is out of town, so I gotta wait.
And to my friend Albert that might be listening, I got that for you. I'll see you at work tomorrow. You guys have a good one. Please like this video. Please share this out. Subscribe. We're up to 73 now. Every little bit helps. We appreciate it. Thank you to ASAP Sports Network as well, too. We're going to be up and on there broadcasting very soon on Roku. Catch us on live TV.
That's so cool.
That's going to be awesome. Then listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and donate to the podcast for Anchor. We appreciate you guys. He's on Fire Podcast, and we're out of here. Deuces.
Love you.